Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again. Today I'm going to be doing another one of my me versus the critics on BoardGameGeek.com of a game that I really like, and in this case it's Onitama. I really like this game. I gave it an 8.5 in my review. So let's go ahead and look and see what these people say. I personally find this game to be, it's a Dice Tower essential, as I said before, and I do find it to be somewhat essential in the sense that if you're into abstract games, I think this is one that you should probably have in your collection, partly because it's very quick and it just has very unique mechanics that make it fresh every single time because of the way the cards work. You always have new cards out, and it's not just that there's new cards out, but the combination of the cards makes for different scenarios. You're moving around, and you know that this person will be able to move up 2 spaces. You'll be able to move 2 spaces to the side, and as it rotates, everything changes and is interesting each time. It's constantly a new experience, a fun experience every time you play, to me. So let's see what people disagree. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just tell you, and this is the distribution instead of showing an image like I had before. 10 stars, there's 329. 9 stars, there's 866. 8 stars, there's 2.8 thousand. 7 stars, there's 1.8 thousand. 6 stars, 769. 5 stars, 164. 4 stars, 47, so there's a humongous drop-off. 8's by far the majority, drops off big time down at 5, and then 4, of course, at 47, it just really starts dropping. Then 3, there's 29, 2, there's 12, and 1, there's 3. So, as you can see, it's very much a popular game. Very few people who rate it haven't liked it. But let's go ahead and see what they didn't like, and we'll see what we think. Now, in the case of the 1s, there's no comments, so I can't even deal with any 1-star comments. There's just people who just gave it a 1 and they didn't say why. Okay, in the 2s, there's probably not going to be many, but let's go ahead and see. Okay, we've got interesting mechanic, but it didn't pan out well for us. Each player would hoard any good card to prevent the other player from having access to more powerful moves, meaning the same cards with comparatively simple, boring moves were the only ones being used. It ended up feeling more like a game of chess with slightly more powerful pawns, but pawns nonetheless. Okay, well, here's the thing. That is part of the strategy, is knowing when to use those good cards. And yeah, you will hoard them sometimes. I've done it. I'll have the Tiger, which is in the base set. That's the only one that allows you to move 2 spaces forward, which is a super powerful card, although it can't move anywhere to the side, and I think it can only move 1 space backwards. That's it. So it has very limited choices, but it's the only one that can move really far. Yeah, you don't really want to play it unless you know it's the right time. And that's really the key to the game, though, is trying to get yourself in the right position to maximize on using the best cards. And that way you're okay with your opponent getting them because you know that you maximized on your opportunity. And it could be that if you use it and they want to hoard it, let them hoard it, because if they want to hoard it and not use it, that's good for you. So I don't think that's a flaw. That's just part of the way the strategy works in this game. You're trying to figure out, what do you want to do? Do you want to use your good card quickly, or do you want to try to wait for the right time, or do you want to try to keep your opponent from using it? That's just a strategy, really. And is it possible that 2 players could be like that? Sure. I mean, maybe they would never play the good cards because they're so worried about the other person getting them, but I would... And yeah, I think that would probably be not as fun, but I think you'd quickly realize, it's worth it to use them, because if they're hoarding cards already, I'll use the good stuff. If they want to hoard it later, fine, let me use it now so I can get an advantage. So I don't see that as being such a big issue. What is the appeal? So many better 2-player abstracts out there. Games drag on forever, just not fun. Before I finish the games I've played don't drag on forever. Typically they're pretty quick, so I don't agree with them there. Now, could they? Here's the thing about this game. You're going to have moments where you probably need to sacrifice one of your pieces. You just go in there, you kill something, knowing that it's going to get killed in return, because it's going to open you up to new possibilities, or being able to maneuver inside and start taking advantage of the situation. So I think that's probably a case where people they're turtling too much and too afraid to make a move that makes them lose a piece. In this game, sometimes that's the right choice. So I think that's just maybe not good strategy. That'd be my guess. I think the weakness with Onitama is that there is just not enough in the design that propels the game forward. Movement options are too constrained and gameplay is stifled. Games can really drag until someone decides to just charge forward. Master and student pieces have the same movement options. We also found that the additional motion of having to exchange movement cards in addition to moving pieces disrupted the Zen-like flow of what should be a simple abstract. That's supposed to be red? I don't know what he means by that. In quotes, he says that's supposed to be red. I don't know what he means. But And to me, it's not as stifling and as held back as he thinks. In this game, that is the excitement, is that you do have a certain amount of tension building up as you're, and the thing is, the board's tiny, so it takes about 2 seconds and you're right on top of each other. So, but then you might have a little bit of a stalemate whenever you're trying to figure out when to make your move. But I've never had a game where it held up so long because no one would make a move. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and if you're the type of people who are so afraid of losing a piece, then yeah, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you're so afraid of losing a piece that you'll just sit there and just turtle forever, never really making a move. Yeah, well, then it's not even fun. And honestly, almost any game that's abstract that I've played anyway, well, not any, I guess there's a few exceptions, but stuff like chess and checkers is kind of the same way. Of course, checkers makes you move forward. Here, you don't have to. But in chess, you can move backwards. But the point is, in chess, you could stall if you wanted to, and people may not move up, but you will, because if you're paying attention and trying to make opportune movements, that's just part of the game. So again, I don't see that as a problem, and I've never experienced it being so long either. Maybe if I did, I would have a problem with it, but I've never had it happen. So not something I'd ever choose to play again. But he doesn't say why, so I can't really help him or address what he thinks. Okay, now we're on the threes. Most of the movement cards become filler as soon as a powerful one is introduced. For instance, Hoarding Tiger, which is the one I was talking about earlier that lets you move 2 spaces, it's really powerful, and only planning around playing your other card turn after turn instead of punishing you by severely limiting your own options, locks your opponent out of viable offensive moves in the vast majority of scenarios. Yeah, now, before I finish here's the thing. If one player is hoarding the Tiger, that means they're constantly just using the other card. Now, it's cycling, but the point is, if you see that that's what they're doing, suddenly you realize that you can almost guarantee what they're going to do. You know that they're just going to cycle those cards, although you should have 2 cards that you're willing to use, which gives you more options. If someone is locking themselves up like that, that's their problem. Now, you obviously don't want to set yourself up so they can use it to maximize their advantage in an obvious way, but the point is, if they're too afraid to use something, let them be afraid to use it while you use what you have to your advantage. He says, and when you manage to avoid such powerhouses, many setups will only include movement cards that allow to move 1 space at a time. Well, that's the majority of them, really, I guess. Unless he says 1 space at a time. I mean, a lot of them allow you to move like over and up, or, to me, that would be 2 spaces. I don't know what he means, but in the base game, the Tiger is the only one that lets you move 2 spaces ahead. So I'm not 100% sure what he means. But he says, let's see, allow to move 1 space at a time, meaning whoever crosses the middle line. Oh, here we go. He says, many setups will only include movement cards that allow to move 1 space at a time, meaning whoever crosses the middle line first will likely lose a piece. Yeah, and that's just the nature of the game. If you play chess, do you expect to never lose a piece? I mean, no, someone's going to lose the first piece, and it likely will be the person who advances first, because that's just the nature of this kind of game. So, again, you have to know when to sacrifice. It's not, oh no, I have to sacrifice a piece. No, you need to know when to do it to open yourself up, to either force your opponent to let you kill their piece once they capture yours, and they'll give you more openings, or so they move out of the way so you can move in somewhere else. So, no, I don't see that as a problem. He says the game's slow move rate makes it actually really hard to even set up exchanges because the piece you'd want to make a counter capture with is more than 1 move away. I have definitely not had that problem, so I disagree there. Overall, mostly just feels like complicated tic-tac-toe in the sense each player is waiting for the other one to make a mistake. No, I just don't understand. I mean, the whole point of this game is setting up those situations, a lot like the way chess is, because you're trying to get your pieces in such a way that either forces your opponent to take you so that you can take them, or forces your opponent to move out of the way with their pieces. I mean, and you can do this. I mean, I don't know. Unless these people have really bad luck on the way the cards are, maybe there's some groups of cards that have really bad synergy, but I've never experienced it, and I've played the game several times, and I've never had that problem. So my guess is still that these people are just too afraid to make a move, or they don't know how to maneuver in such a way that gives them the advantage. But that's neither here nor there for now. I don't know the situation, but I just disagree from my experience so far. Okay, this guy says, fun little game, but I can't see it having real staying power for me versus the classic abstracts or even Hive. I've never played Hive. And classic abstracts, I'll just say chess and checkers. To me, those don't even get close because I like the variability and the way it changes each game. And this guy says fun little game, and yet he gave it a 3. I mean, let's just go back up here and remind ourselves what a 3 means on Board Game Geek. 3 means bad, likely won't play this again. So why would you give something a 3 if you think it's a fun little game? When they say it, that means bad. I don't know if that was a mistake. Who knows? Okay, next 3, a light little filler abstract that feels like chess light. Okay, I agree with that, including being light on entertainment. I disagree with that. Using only 5 cards of the stack of available ones helps keep each game from feeling completely identical, but does nothing to make the game feel like anything but an incredibly boring slot. There was nothing here that made us want to play this one. Traded it away. Well, I don't really understand. The fact that they only use 5 cards, it made the game feel completely... No, it does nothing to make the game feel like anything, but basically saying it makes it boring. The fact there's only 5. To me, maybe y'all disagree, but to me, having 5 is powerful because you always have 2 options, which is something that's awesome. You have several pieces and 2 options of how any one of those pieces could move. And then you have the one, and you see the one that's coming to you next. To me, that's great. It makes it to where there's always multiple options available to you, and you know what's coming. Maybe, but here's the thing. This guy, if he wanted to, play with more. Play with 7 cards, 3 apiece, 1 in the center. Or maybe even play with 8. You have 3 in front of you and 2 in the middle where you get to choose which one of the 2 you take. I mean, it's not like you can't customize this or, make house rules to make it more interesting for you. If you find that to be too little, house rule the game. Have more options. Have more cards. Do whatever you need to do to make it more interesting for you. Maybe that's a problem with the rules if someone doesn't like that, but you can easily decide to do it differently. Kind of like, Cosmic Encounter. People house rule stuff on there all the time, and they play special ways where you have secret powers, so no one knows what your power is until you want to use it. I mean, people do that all the time, and the reason why is because they want to make it more interesting for the way they want to play. It's just too easy to do. It's not something to give the game a 3 over. The components are lovely. The game itself is gimmicky, smaller chess. I played 3 rounds of it and traded it. It made me want to play chess or Go. Well, I just don't think... To me, it makes me not want to play chess in comparison. But that's his opinion. Or her opinion. Simple 2-player game with limited and exchanging movement possibilities with a chess-like theme. Prone to far more AP than it warrants, of no interest to me. I'll agree it could have a lot of analysis paralysis depending on the players, but I don't think it'd be more than a lot of other games just because you only have a few options. The board is very small. I don't think it's very prone to long amounts of AP. I haven't seen it. Dumbed down version of the Duke. I haven't played the Duke, but I've seen it. I know your pieces have special movement. Each piece has its own movement, and you flip it over each time you use it, I think, and then that makes it to where it can do something different. Honestly, it looks very interesting to me. I've thought about buying the Duke. I don't own it, but I'm interested. But he says, dumbed down version of the Duke. It just didn't click for me like it does for many. Love the components, though. Okay, fair enough. I'm not going to complain there. If you're an experienced chess player that can see 5 or more future turns, do not play this. In most card draw configurations, there is one card that provides a move different from the others. What? In most card draw configurations, there is one card that provides a move different from the others? I don't understand what he means. Then the one who draws it will just sit on it. I guess he means stuff like the tiger, maybe the crab, stuff there are a few special cards, and maybe he just means the other ones are all somewhat similar in either being able to move left, right, up and left, or whatever. And a lot of them have somewhat similar characteristics, but not identical, so I don't totally agree with him there. He says it'll just sit on it for the whole game until able to make a game-deciding move. And many card draws, to me, again, I think that's the interesting part, is being able to decide when to use what you might consider your more powerful cards. Although I will say, some of the ones that don't seem that powerful can be very key to keep in your reserve, because sometimes being able to move one space in front of you is super powerful. And there's been times I don't have a card that lets me move one space in front of me, and that makes me totally vulnerable, as my opponent can suddenly move in close and in front of me, and I can't stop them. So even the wimpy cards to me are good. I mean, I say wimpy in jest, really, because they're all good. That's the thing. So it's more perception of what's good. The tiger seems good, but if you have the tiger, you can only move, with that card, you can only move 2 spaces in front of you or 1 space backwards. You can't move laterally at all or diagonally. So that's limiting you, because your other card, hopefully it will let you do some of that, but if it doesn't have much, it could lead, if you keep that tiger and you have something that doesn't let you move to the right, maybe that your other card lets you move to the left, your opponent knows they can start coming from that angle and you cannot stop them. So sometimes keeping those powerful cards is actually a vulnerability. So to me, that's what makes it interesting. But, neither here nor there. Okay, I don't even know where I was now. Got totally sidetracked. After 10 games, I have no interest in playing it further. If you can only see 2 to 3 moves forward, I think this would be more fun. Well, okay, I'm not going to disagree with him there. Maybe that's true. But I still say that his complaint earlier was not to be worried about. Okay, this guy says, okay, I'll admit that this game works, but why play this when I could play chess? There's very little to like here outside of the production aspect. The reason to play it over chess for me is because it's variable every time. With chess, it's almost always the same opening moves, especially depending on if you play the same person. And don't get me wrong, I understand chess has a lot of depth. That if you really got into it, you could probably learn a lot of techniques and stuff. But for something that you want to just be able to put on the table, teach quickly, and everyone enjoy and be able to easily get a hold of the game, but also have a challenging level to master of the maneuvering and planning your cards and what you're going to allow your opponent to get, to me, that's way more fun. It's different every time, and there's way more intrigue for me trying to decide, what cards am I willing to play for them to get, and anticipating what am I going to get in a few turns. I like that so much. To me, it makes chess almost obsolete, but I understand that chess has a special place for a lot of people, so I'm not going to complain too much there. And then last one here, felt almost zero choice, solvable patterns with possibility of getting stuck. I'm sure there is a game in it somewhere, and if there is, it's a sleek abstract, but it's definitely not for me. Getting stuck, I'm not sure what he means, other than maybe you can get to a point where if you move, you're going to get killed. Well, yeah, that's just the way this game works. You could lock yourself into that position. The key is to try to lock your opponent into that position. It's a game of, trying to outmaneuver, and sometimes you might get outmaneuvered. I don't see how that's a big deal. So, do we even want to go to the fours? Let me just go to the fours real quick, I can just read 1 or 2 and just see what they say. I think I pretty much have my opinion of what these people think. Move your 5 pieces on a 5x5 grid using the cards you have. Each time you use a card, it goes to the opponent. 2 turns later, the goal is to checkmate the emperor or move your emperor to the spot in the middle of the last row. I thought this would lead to interesting decisions. Will the card I use give my opponent more options later? What card will I hold on to for later use? Which 2 cards can create the most options? What can I make my opponent think that he can do with the cards he gets? The cards seem to have a lot of variety, but because most of them are moving only on row forward or backwards, the ones moving 2 rows are really powerful, but you will hold on to these, it seems, because you don't want your opponent to get that card. It's more used like the threat card instead of a strategic card. With all the different movement cards, all the games seem to look the same. In all the games I played, only 5 though, it seems that all the pieces first move to the second row. And once they're on the second row, it seems like a game of chicken. It's really hard to trap your opponent, so when you capture a piece of your opponent will capture your piece in the next turn. Most of the time in exchange, except when the opponent isn't paying attention. Because of that, it seems like it's more about your control of the area after those exchanges, which makes it quite a boring game for me. I can't imagine this. He says, and once they are on the second row, he says, it seems that all pieces first move to the second row. I've never seen that happen once in any game I've played. I mean, I personally try to get a few pieces out there and try to outmaneuver my opponent. Now, it depends on the cards that are there, and that's part of what makes it interesting, because you can actually have a point where you can't move to the left or to the right, like I said before. Or maybe you can't move backwards. Maybe you can't even move forwards right in front of you. There's a lot of different things you might be limited based on what cards you end up having, and that's what you're trying to anticipate, is what is my opponent going to be stuck with and not be able to, they won't be able to maneuver a certain direction and take advantage of that. So I don't know why you just move everyone to the second row. I mean, while your opponent's wasting time trying to get everyone up to the second row, I would be trying to get in there quickly and try to outmaneuver them. Maybe, but I don't know what their experience is. They might have had experiences that just weren't so great, but I haven't had such experiences, so I can't agree. This is one of those games I would love to love, but we never got into it. Would never make it onto our gaming table. Not enough depth. Well, as far as the depth goes, I can see that. There's not a lot of depth in the sense that it's a streamlined game. I mean, it's very streamlined. It's just a small grid. You have a few cards, and you're trying to figure out what to do with those cards. But I think there is depth in the strategic and tactical choices. I think there's plenty of options there. So depending on what he means, I don't think I agree. But either way, that's enough for today. I think you kind of get the idea of what other people see as the problem. Maybe that will help you understand if it's a problem to you. It's not a problem to me. I think the game works very well. It's very interesting, and I look forward to playing it many more times in the future. So let me know in the comments if you disagree with me, and at least I wasn't as angry this time as I was on some past ones, or maybe you were hoping I would be. I don't know, but either way, I appreciate you watching the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree, and if you have any questions or comments, other related whatnot. Either way, I appreciate it. I will look forward to seeing you on the next one, and I will see you then. Take care. Bye.